Sir Geoffrey Kent is founder of the award-winning luxury tour operator Abercrombie Kent, and he's credited with inventing the experiential holiday. He's hosted everyone on his legendary African safaris, from David Rockefeller to Richard Burton and Prince Harry, each guest adding to Sir Geoffrey's extraordinary bank of wild tales from every corner of the globe. Sir Geoffrey was brought up in the African bush himself, and was trained at the Royal Military Academy in England. But he has an old Land Rover and a few old notes of cash to thank for the towering empire that he eventually built.
I think I was driven from a young age. My mother came from a fairly wealthy family, but I think her parents had lost most of the money. My father was just an army officer. And we lived in this farming community where a lot of people had a lot of money, big farms. All the English aristocrats went out to Kenya. And I thought, gosh, I have to get this family back. I've got to earn money. So I was driven from a very young age to make money. I'm so competitive. It's like being number two. I don't like being this. My dad had an old Woolsey where the next door neighbours had these huge farms with the twin Mercedes-Benzes and lots of horses. And we could struggle to keep one horse. I said, no, I want to have lots of horses. And I want to have a Mercedes-Benz too. Like every kid wants a Rolex watch and a Mercedes-Benz.
So you started off with this bracelet business.
I started off making elephant hair bracelets, which was then from the elephants that had been hunted on game control, killing farms, hurting farms, and all their tails. They sold off the tusks and everything else, but they didn't know what to do with the tails. And so I made them into elephant hair bracelets, and I sold a huge amount to Ethiopian Airlines, so my first big deal. Then I sold to all the curio shops in Nairobi, and literally at 16 I had more money than my father, which was amazing. I started buying motorbikes, and there we were.
But you went into the military. What was the decision behind that, coming to Sandhurst, the famous military academy here in the UK?
That was because I was expelled from school when I was 16 because I had motorbikes and because I was not allowed motorbikes. And so my father, being a colonel in the King's African Rifles, was not very happy that I'd been expelled because I was going to Shell and Brasenose College, Oxford and all that sort of thing. And so I escaped that and I said I'm going to Cape Town. So I got a map, sleeping bags, etc. Got my motorbike and went down towards Tanzania, turned right, and went all the way to Cape Town. And if you'd like to spend 3 days, I'll tell you that story. But anyhow, I got there, and my dad said, when are you coming back? And I thought, I'm going to drive that back. So I sold my story down there, came back on a cruise ship. All the photographers in Nairobi were there to meet me as the first person in the world to have ever taken a motorbike. With no pre-planning, no cruise, nothing, right? So I was a hero. I was on the front page of everything. My father was not amused at all. And he said, actually, I'm going to switch you on. We have the best thing for you. You can ride horses, you can shoot as much as you like, it's going to be very elegant, and you can do everything you love. And I said, what is it? He said, it's called the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst. And I said, oh, where's that? And he said, I didn't know where it was. He said, oh, it's in the UK. And that was it. I was on a plane 2 weeks later. 17 out of the Royal Military Academy. Intake 29, yeah.
What did the military then teach you about success and how to achieve your goals?
Well, I think my father said I'm full of ambition, but it was what he called it raw ambition. You don't have any, and he's ex-military too, you don't have any ways of how you're going to get there. It's just in your head. It's all like a big jumble blur, huge ambition, but with no straight path or tactics or strategies to get from A to B. And so what the army taught me about many other things was, one, survival. That you taught, that things can go horribly wrong, and whatever goes wrong, you can never, ever be beaten. No Sandhurst officer in those days would ever be beaten.
You can't fail.
You cannot fail. You weren't even allowed to get sick. No, you could not get sick. You could not do anything. People get sick today, but in those days you could not get sick. You always had to be there. And then I was taught strategies and how you get from A to B. And so when I came out of Sandhurst, I came out very disciplined. I still had all the raw ambition, but now totally disciplined. In those days, of course, all the African presidents, the new ones, would say the person you fear most is a Sandhurst-trained major, because he would have the ability to launch a coup d'etat fairly easily. And so we were full of, we taught strategy. We knew exactly where to go, and we were very fit. We kept personally very fit, and so all the right things. We never obviously didn't take. We had a bit to drink, but certainly there was no drugs. It was a clean life from 17 onwards,
A lot of successful people have a fear of failure. I think that's a fair thing to say, isn't it? Failure isn't an option. Do you have that?
Oh, I'm frightened today. It's ridiculous. I'm sitting here today. I'm always frightened because anything can go wrong at any time in a business, anywhere. And so you're always worried. So you're always thinking ahead. I'm always trying to think, well, what happens this? What happens now with, Brexit's a minor issue for us, but maybe. But what's going to happen in the United States? Well, this whole, what happens if there's another financial collapse? Is 2008? Could that happen again? Just had a lunch today. Is that going to happen again? What's going to happen to the euro? And so you're always worried, and that keeps you alert all day long. Say, nothing must happen. I must prepare for it. I must think ahead. And anticipation is everything. Most people do not anticipate. You have to think ahead. Think 5 years, 4, 3, 2, 1. So I'm always thinking.
What's interesting is that you've got a very established career. You're very successful. I'm in your beautiful home in a lovely area of London, and yet you're still driven. You're still working hard, and you still have that fear. Where does the drive come from?
Well, I think also it's to do with if you're very competitive. I think, and I started out being very competitive in polo. I became a world champion polo player, and I think it was from nothing, from Nairobi, Kenya, to win the US Open, US Gold Cup, and captain the Windsor Park team. It was all the drive to win, and so I cannot accept coming second. It's just not acceptable ever. And so I have to win. And when I see people approaching me, competing with Abercrombie Kent, we either go after them, we buy them, or if we can't buy them, we beat them. But we will never sit there and say, oh, isn't it good? He's a competitor, and that's really bad.
Does that come from your military training or from your childhood, where you were concerned to bring the family's lifestyle back to what it originally was?
I think it came from when I was young, because at Pony Club I was determined to win. That was before the military, right? So any competition I wanted to win. But I think the army, the British Army, then taught you how to, again, going back to what I just said, you had a strategic way to winning. Now, in the old days, you just want to win. But actually, now I say, well, I want to win. I want to go from A to B. B can be up here. In the old days, I just go now I go, I go this way, this way, this way, this way, this way. Game, set, and match, So I'm much more strategic on it now.
You had that crazy idea to create bracelets out of elephant hair as a kid. Then you had this crazy idea to start safaris in Africa, which, doesn't sound like a crazy idea, but it was at the time, wasn't it?
Well, remember this. I started the company when I was 20 years old with my mum and dad, and there was no Abercrombie. We made that up. AB put us top of the yellow pages because I didn't want any. I wanted to be like right up there, and also I wanted to pretend that I had a very rich partner called Abercrombie, who I could boast about. So I'll discuss it with Abercrombie. Actually, with Abercrombie Kent, 100 quid and an old Land Rover. That was it, and me. My mum and me were on the road. My dad did the accounts. And that was the company, 1962, finished. And I was still in the British Army. I came in and out. Then I joined full-time in 65. And then I took it over in 66. My father left Kenya. And so 24 as MD and running this company. And But
at what point did you realise you'd hit on something?
I tell you what, everyone was hunting then. Everybody came to Keynes to hunt, to shoot wild animals. And I said to myself, why is it that people don't do any photographs? And why do we have to hunt all day long? And I was tired of hunting, didn't want to hunt anymore. I said, why don't we do photographs? And so the trouble with photographs, they just had little tiny self-service lodges with no refrigeration. And so the military had taught me, for my general, how to bring big diesel trucks with big tents, and you brought refrigeration. And I brought down my fitters from Malta, and we fitted out these diesel trucks, which I bought ex-army auctions, and with all the refrigeration. And then I could move. I was the first. I started the first camp ever. You think how many camps there are today? So there was first camp, and we literally had frozen butter and champagne with the hippos beneath us from a camp, and that started the whole photographic movement. I had this great slogan: "Shoot with a camera, not with a gun." Launched in 66.
So it was a conservation effort as well, ultimately, even if that wasn't the initial intention. Come and see the animals, don't kill the animals.
Well, I think it was also self-interest. That everybody at school, I went to Duke of York School in Nairobi, everybody in American or English schools, you're going to be a lawyer or an accountant, right? Everyone at school wanted to be a professional hunter with Carn Downey, the big company then. That's all we wanted to do, but that took 7 years. So by the time I'd done the British Army, I could not be a professional hunter anymore. So it was pure self-interest that I had to start something which didn't need a further 7 years of training, but could use all my earlier training. So that was why I did it. It was like circumstance.
And then people discovered this idea of going and staying in lodges in Africa and the safari. When was the tipping point when you realised you were really onto a need that people wanted satisfied, and then they started coming in larger numbers?
Well, I think not just safaris, remember. What I really created was experiential holidays, which is, inducted in the Hall of Fame here about 2 or 3 years ago for having invented experiential safaris. Today, everyone's talking about experiences. Jewelry companies talking about experiences. Restaurants talking about experiences. Everyone talks about, but we created that. And so it wasn't just that. I want to say, how can I think it all started in New York one day. I was there and I got to the States, and somebody was amazed at what I did. And they said, the most dangerous thing we do is run an amber light on the way to work. I said, wow, they think that's dangerous? I do that all the time. I run red lights. So, okay. And so I said, my father used to have a phrase. He said, every holidays, where are we going? He said, where you can't drink the water. That was a wonderful sentence, where you can't drink the water. That means it's really primitive. We're going to go so we can shoot and we can find, nobody else goes there. And we went into the Congo and we went everywhere. It was so exciting because there was nothing there. Mm. And so I said, I'm going to build Abercrombie Kent on where you can't drink the water. And so I started to really venture. I went up the Amazon first to do that. I was one of the first to go to China. It's 1979. In fact, the Chinese gave me the first license to bring individuals into China. Nobody had thought of that before. So I was always pushing the boundary. We went to Antarctic way back in the 80s. And so I went to Saudi Arabia in 1972. Made a lot of money in Saudi Arabia then. So everywhere where you couldn't go, I went. And the military had trained me how to do it. And so it made you fearless. Most people would be scared to go and do that.
I was going to say, but the very idea is scary, isn't it, to a lot of people, just to try something like that in business that had never been tried before?
I look at kids today, whining away, we can't do this. I said, well, why don't you get in a plane? Go to Guyana. They've got huge offshore oil off Guyana. Go there, buy some real estate, downtown Guyana. Start a coffee shop. Go where the money is, and nobody will do that. You just go to I don't know, anywhere. But instead of sitting around London and hoping something's going to happen, they should go and get them to. But it's primitive. I mean, I went to Saudi Arabia in 1972 and didn't leave till 78. It was tough, but we made a lot of money.
Was it helpful that very high-profile people, celebrities, really latched onto your business and obviously were seen enjoying your holidays?
That's not how it went at all. I decided very early on that I was going to get high-profile people. Even then, I'd realized that I've got to go and get these people. So I spent my life reading newspapers, reading Time, Newsweek in those days, and I got David Rockefeller, the richest man in the world. That's another long story. When you've got 2 hours, I'll tell you about it. But I got David Rockefeller to come to Africa on a safari with me, and that started it. David told everybody, and then movie stars came, and I took out Richard Burton on his first trips, so did all, and then once recommended me, and I was the guide, I was the catalyst, so I'd take them on, I'd come and stay with them, they'd ask their friends around, so I got all that going myself, and that did it. I brought Mr. Firestone to Africa. So.
Is there an extraordinary moment that you still think of, that you were in the middle of nowhere with some extraordinary figure, and you kind of thought, how did I end up here?
No, I mean, yes, but the point was, you'd be sitting around a fire at the bottom of Ngorongoro crater, and I'd be listening to David Rockefeller, the richest man in the world then, and telling all these stories. I used to look at him and said, well, he's not that much different from me. So how have I got nothing? I got one Toyota sitting under the tree, and this guy's a huge private jet. What's so different about him? And I always make notes. You see, already. Well, I mean, so I go, whatever he listened, I listened all through dinner. Then I'd rush to my tent, and I wrote all the notes down. Then the next day, that's good. So I always took tons of notes of what people would say.
Well, you're the perfect person to ask then. What do you think is the secret to success? Because I find the same thing when I meet very high-profile people. You kind of think, they're not that extraordinary. They've just got something that has allowed them to break through. Is there one thing that you think that they all share?
Yeah, the people who win, it's total passion. They're going to be passionate about things. They're going to be totally energetic. You cannot be lazy. You must wake up every day, out of bed, all day long until the last second, every single day. You've got to have a great idea. That's one of the things. And nobody knows what a great idea is because it hasn't been thought of before. So that's tough too. So you've got to believe in it. So everyone said I was going to form a huge company with 2,300 people, $1 billion business from a safari. It doesn't seem possible. but it's possible. If you work really hard at it, you can do it. You can have a great idea. I think it's more, and you must never, ever give up. So many pitfalls come and hit you, and it's so much easier. You know what? I can't do this anymore. This is just too tiring. I can't. But that's where you're trained. You've got to come up. You've got to beat it. You've got to get over it, and you've got to jump up, and you've got to keep at it. And your passion, energy comes through, and you win.
So your advice to younger people who want what you've got is what?
Well, first of all, they've got to think of a good idea. Maybe that's a good idea could be working for somebody first who has an almost idea like that. And, a good idea is not necessarily comes from nothing. Mine was a good idea of something else. Carr and Downey had done that since 1897 or something, right? Shooting safaris. So mine was a safari, but it was not shooting. It was photographic. So you get, even if I'm not totally rich, I'm not a great artist or anything. I'm not like the Facebook guy or something, but I'm just a practical person who wants to really deliver a great product. But I think you have to have a lot of empathy. I think if you're going to sell, you've got to have a real feeling for what the client wants. Everybody always says, what you want, what I want. No, you should be looking, everyone says, what does he want? At the end of the day, you're selling to the client. What can I give them? What do they want? And how can I make it better than anybody else? And that's the other thing. You'll be so competitive that you have to improve your product every single day. Improve. And we're still doing that, day in, day out. What's about this? What about that?
One last thought on the idea that people have these ambitions, they commit to them, and they doggedly stick to them. Do you believe that's a good strategy, or do you need to be much more flexible than that and just grab opportunities when they come along?
No, I mean, what I've done is I created Abercrombie Kent brand, and I operate within that brand. So we're in hotels, we're in river ships, we're in expedition ships, we have tour operating, ground operating companies. So within that brand, I stay with the same brand, day in, day out, day in, day out. Other people who are more serial entrepreneurs, who think one day it's dog's food, one day it's build houses, next day it's swimming pools in Cape Town. That's hard work, huh? Because it takes a long time. And so I'm not a serial entrepreneur. I have serial entrepreneurial thoughts under one brand. So my advice is to think of a great idea and stay with it for a long, long time.
Well, thank you very much for speaking to me. I really appreciate your insight and sharing, your experience.
Yeah, pleasure. Enjoyed being with you, and happy to talk to any young entrepreneur you find.